says, okay, good, good. Hey, oh, good. It's now displaying on my screen. Good. People's chat messages. Okay, good. And I'm going to type a test. Okay, I typed a test and it's not displaying. When I type things, it doesn't show on my stream, but I see everybody else's messages, but you guys see my message, whatever. All right, so, all right. I don't know if I'll have time to do an edited video explaining these classes, and so I figured I should do this. And anyway, if I were to do an edited video, I would need to systematically go through it anyway. You know what? I want to get a printout of this so that I can take notes of what I see for a possible future video. Here we go. Yeah. Hello, people. Yay! Wow, we got a group of people. Bigger than my Ronald Off the Record live streams, where at least when I randomly pop up. Yeah, I have a bigger established audience here. Okay. So let me get that printout. Yeah, as people know, I've taken some time off from my channel because of Stranger Things, and I was making content for my other channel, Ronald Off the Record. And then, unsurprisingly, political things occurred and have taken up my time as well. But I've already made 2 videos that are available on Patreon, supporters of my Patreon. One is on 5 criminally underrated spells in Pathfinder, and another is my video on the rules of jumping, where I feature Mario. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get my printout. All right, let's experience this together, shall we? Okay. All right, risks and rewards. I have to... Okay, the Daredevil is a risk taker and explorer, often running head first. Oh, Megan's here, of course. Megan. She's meowing at me. She wants to jump in my lap. Come on, Megan. The Daredevil is a risk taker and explorer, often running headfirst into dangerous situations, assuming their skills and luck will pull them through. They rely on adrenaline to fuel their daring abilities, which sometimes get them into trouble. Okay. Now, I'm wondering, this is my first thought, is where does this fall? What concept is this, since we already have a swashbuckler who does daring things and is kind of a showman who like tumbles through people, does other things to get... Oh geez, Megan's causing chaos. I'll try to climb up on my table. Yes. I wonder what the delay is. On my display, what I see, I'm still using the bathroom and getting my printout. I would be curious, when I say... I'm going to say ping right now. If someone can type ping back right now, I'd like to see what the delay is. And now Megan's here, causing chaos. Hopefully I don't lose my camera doing this. What did I want to say? Yeah, and then swashbucklers enter a state of panache where they get bonuses to their skills and also can do bonus damage. But the Daredevil seems to be more about taking risks instead of, and I'm thinking of Evil Knievel doing stunts. So we'll see what their mechanic is, what their central mechanic is. The Slayer is a monster hunter extraordinaire using their knowledge of creatures. Oh, there's the ping. Huh, so that was about a minute. Or 40 seconds. The Slayer is a monster hunter extraordinaire using their knowledge of creatures and their tactics to their full advantage. Slayers can take trophies from their kills, which enhance their weapons and armor in unique ways. Oh, interesting. So, okay, from first edition Pathfinder, Slayers were kind of... Okay, Megan is trying to mess with my microphone setup here. I don't know if I can show her. But, yeah, she's like being affectionate with my microphone. But, she's chaotic. Okay, but they were a hybrid of the Ranger and the Rogue. And so they would have like a lesser sneak attack, but also have the ability to do extra damage like Rangers against their hunted prey in first edition Pathfinder. With the feat system and the archetype system in Pathfinder, it would seem like we don't need an in-between Rogue and Ranger class, but this seems to be focused on monster hunting, and their knowledge is important. I wonder if intelligence is their main skill. We'll see. And they apparently they take trophies, and that's part of what they do to empower themselves. Okay, they're going to be in a book in summer 2027. Okay, cool. All right, so I believe I've not been keeping up to date, but the Impossible playtest, I think it was called. Oh goodness, it's been so long. Where they play tested 2 classes. I think one was the Runesmith. I forget the other. Is gonna they come out this summer. YouTube is being very weird right now, Snidramon says. Huh. Okay. Well, I usually have an extensive delay. Okay, 58 people here. Thank you. Give likes. This puts the stream in front of more people. Okay, how to play test. It goes through April 10th. People should give feedback, especially if you have played. They want feedback from play especially. Okay. And the data is on Foundry already. Excellent. Okay. The Daredevil. Strength or dexterity is their main stat. You rush headlong where others fear to tread, heedless of any dangers. You thrive in those moments where your back is up against the wall and the odds are against you. You dash across the battlefield, seemingly to face an enemy, only to catch them by surprise with an astounding stunt that sends them reeling. All the while, adrenaline courses through your body, fueling your appetite for risk. All right. Okay, sounds very swashbucklery still. Expert in perception, expert in fortitude and reflex, trained in acrobatics and athletics. So they seem to be the acrobat and gymnast of swashbucklers. As you can see, I'm still thinking in swashbuckler land. They're limited to light armor. Okay. I'm going to skim this part. You might not hit as hard as other martial characters, but your follow-up attacks are often more reliable, so you tend to hit more often. Interesting. You can also interact with the environment, pushing off of walls. Fighting alone is not enough to keep your adrenaline pumping, so you gotta tumble and stuff. Okay. Alright, a lot of these class features I assume will be our box standard stuff. Okay, adrenaline is our key, looks like one of our key things. We also have Audacious Combatant. They get a first level class feat. Daredevil's Endurance, Daredevil Stunts. Propelling Stride, Stunt Damage. Wow, 5 or 6 things. Okay, cool. Let's read them. Adrenaline. Okay, is there comments? Okay. As you slip past the deadly blades of your opponents and perform stunts that put life and limb on the line, the thrill of danger washes through your veins. This heightened state is called adrenaline. Huh, it's a state. It's not a chemical. It's not a... Is it a hormone? It's a state. You gain adrenaline by performing actions that have the risky trait. Okay, okay, I'm trying to figure out how this is different from a swashbuckler, which has the something trait. I forget what it's called. The GM might determine that particularly dangerous actions, such as leaping a deep chasm or sprinting across hazardous terrain, gains the risky trait. Such stunts typically involve at least one action and either automatically deal damage to you or risk dealing damage as a result of a failed skill check or saving throw. All right, so it should usually cost at least one action and involve the risk of not just damage, but any harm, really. Should be. You gain adrenaline at the start of the risky action before you move or attempt any rolls. Interesting. The adrenaline lasts until the beginning of your next turn, so you must constantly perform risky actions to keep your adrenaline flowing. All right. It's kind of like starting the battery of a car, I guess. Got to keep going. Normally, you gain and keep adrenaline only in combat encounters. Normally, so you can do it outside of it, but it'll be not normal. And when an encounter ends, you lose adrenaline. Okay, to help you gain adrenaline, you gain the daring stunt action. Other Daredevil actions, such as certain class feats, require you to have adrenaline. Okay, interesting. So we have yet to see what adrenaline does. I assume there's some passive benefit, but it unlocks the ability to do certain cool things too. Daring stunt, one action. Once per round, you hurl yourself into the fray and try to maneuver a foe. You stride or leap. You can use daring stunt while burrowing. You can, while burrowing, climbing, flying, or swimming instead of striding if you have the corresponding movement type. You must move at least 10 feet and end your movement adjacent to at least one enemy, so it must be going towards a foe. At the end of your movement, you can attempt to grapple, reposition, shove, or trip one enemy within your reach. You must meet all the requirements of that action. Okay, so that's all of the most of the athletics skill actions that you can do to fuck with people, except disarm, because disarm never gets love, right? Let's see. Okay. You stride or leap, so it doesn't work with long jump. I wonder if that is not a good thing. I mean, you would think long jump should be included here. Yeah, okay. And you can attempt, so you don't have to attempt a maneuver. So if you want to do damage, you can save that for a strike. Save your most accurate attack roll with your most accurate attack. You can save it for a strike. But this is good action economy if you want to wrestle. Swing Ripper would be happy. Because what? You get to go up to somebody, wrestle for a single action. And have 2 actions left over. So this is this is pro wrestling. A good action economy. And you get the benefit of adrenaline before you do the risky action. Whatever adrenaline does. You gain adrenaline at the start of the risky action. Okay, cool. Audacious combatant. Your adrenaline fuels you to attack again and again. Whenever you have adrenaline and make an attack as part of an action with the press trait, it must have the press trait. Your multiple attack penalty is reduced by 1. And if you're on your 3rd or later attack, it's reduced by 2. Okay. Okay, it must have the press trait though. Do they have any press actions at level 1 by default? Apparently not. But do the level 1 feats have press? Yeah, there's a bunch of press action. All of the single action level 1 class feats have the press trait. Okay. So you're kind of, well, most of them. All right, so those must be, you know, good actions if you are kind of quote unquote limited to them in order to keep that accuracy. Whenever you make an attack as part of an action with the press trait. Okay. I assume, okay. All right, to get more accurate. So that's one benefit of adrenaline. And I guess, assume since most enemies don't have reactive strike, why not do daring stunt at the start of your turn to move away from your foe and go back up to them if you don't have adrenaline? I don't know if you can lose adrenaline. Oh yeah, you can when you're. When does it expire? It lasts until the beginning of your next turn. So you must constantly perform risky actions. Okay. All right. So, yeah, it doesn't last longer than a round, apparently. So you're constantly doing, keeping your heart rate up. Okay, you get a level 1 class feat. Daredevil's Endurance. You're used to taking punishment and recovering from the aftermath. You gain the Die Hard General feat. And when you receive healing from treat wounds or battle medicine, you gain a circumstance bonus to the healing equal to your level. Okay. All right. Makes you healthier. Daredevil Stunt. Where others see danger, you see opportunities to debilitate and inconvenience your enemies. You gain an additional first level Daredevil feat that must have the risky trait. Okay. So it's like kind of like the Kineticist gets a bonus. I think they get 2 bonus first level feats. They kind of expand your kit starting at level 1. Okay, it must have the risky trait though. Okay, most of them, well, some of them do. Propelling strides. You can push yourself off a wall or large creature to gain some speed. If you are adjacent to a prop, see sidebar at the beginning of a move action, you gain a 10-foot circumstance bonus to your speeds for that move action. Okay, what is a prop? A prop can be anything large and sturdy enough for you to push yourself off of. This includes a creature that is larger than you, or a wall, column, or other durable terrain feature. The GM decides whether a creature or object counts as a prop, depending on the circumstances. For instance, the GM might decide that you can't use a huge ooze as a prop due to the consistency of its protoplasm. Okay. Interesting. So you're almost better off being small size, being a goblin or a halfling, if you, well, if being 10 feet faster is important to you. That's a little, situational, right? Isn't it? Stunt damage. When you smash your enemy into the scenery, it does real damage. Whenever you have adrenaline and force a target to move, and the movement is interrupted by a prop, the target takes an amount of bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier. This increases by a d6 every 4 levels. Okay. So you can, as part of your daring stunt, if an enemy is next to a wall, spend a single action to go up to them, reposition them into the wall, and do d6 plus your strength. Though, that's kind of middling damage. Why not strike them at that point, right? If your movement was interrupted, you almost certainly did not move them anywhere at all on the battlefield. You just slammed them into an object. So, it sounds cool, but why not use your attack roll to do damage? Maybe some things will proc off of this, I don't know. All right, what is chat saying? Chat has, I don't see any other comments. I guess people are in rapt, I have your rapt attention apparently. Okay, skill feats, the usual stuff. Deny advantage, 3rd level. You are not off guard to hidden, undetected, or flanking creatures. This is like a feature we've seen some other, definitely the rogue. Galvanized mobility. Your foes have difficulty striking you as you slip and tumble past them. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your AC against attacks from reactions you trigger. This increases to +2 when you have adrenaline, which you're almost always going to have adrenaline when you trigger that, right? Because daring stunt, you can do it at any time. Why not daring stunt to walk? I mean, you're limited to once per round, though. But daring stunt will give you adrenaline and give you plus. So it's hard to you're good at avoiding reactive strikes. That's another thing about you. Okay, so I'm just wondering how this compares to the swashbuckler. You don't get bonus damage. You don't get precision damage like the swashbuckler's panache gives you, and it doesn't have the finisher mechanic. I guess the devil's in the details. Like the feats and what those actions do. And I'm going to take a work call. Okay, I'm back. Always rapt attention. Hey, someone tried to speak. Someone's thinking about making a tiny Daredevil. Tactical Onyx says, Swashbuckler is a striker that likes to do skills. Daredevil is a controller that likes skills. Stunt damage is so when you do move people, you're still adding to the fight's tempo. Okay. The fight's tempo. Not sure what that meant, but I think things will become clearer. Okay, will expertise. They're expert at all saves by 3rd level. No surprise, they become expert in weapons, and they're proficient with martial weapons. By level 5. They almost certainly need at least one free hand to do these athletics maneuvers. Evasive reflexes, it's like evasion from D&D. You become master in reflexes, and a success becomes a critical success. Stephen Fox says, yeah, there's definitely differences in the party role the two have, and I think Daredevil is more with what I like about playing Swashbuckler. I'm very angry, it's not butter. Says, I suppose a Daredevil might be more Power Ranger Super Sentai flavored than the Swashbuckler. Okay. I don't know why anyone would be a dexterity Daredevil if, anyway, what we've seen so far wants you to, anyway, I don't know how crucial it is to do athletic skill actions as a Daredevil. I wonder if there's something that lets you use your dexterity for those actions. But yeah, I'm wondering. Anyway, we have this fact that one of the key attributes that you can have is dexterity. Cool. Weapon specialization, nothing surprising here. Perception, master at 9th. Stunt flexibility, is this like the fighter feat? Fighter class feature? When you make your daily preparations, you can replace the 1st level feat you gained through Daredevil Stunt Oh, with another Daredevil feat of 6th level or lower that you meet the prerequisites for, don't already have, and has the risky trait. Okay. You can use that feat until your next daily preparations. Okay. So your bread and butter is risky class feat actions. It's like your martial spells. Okay, improvements in stats, improved stunt flexibility. You gain 2 Daredevil feats during morning preparations now. The first must be 8th level or lower, and the second can be 14th level or lower. You can use the prerequisites of the first to meet the second. Okay. Enduring adrenaline. Whenever you gain adrenaline, you also gain a number of temporary hit points equal to half your level that lasts until the beginning of your next turn. Okay, that's cool. I'm almost surprised. I wonder if something like that could be earlier, because that sounds very adrenaline-y. You know, when you think adrenaline, you think of somebody who fights off pain. So I wouldn't be unhappy if that were available at a lower level. Okay. Ooh, lots of comments. Some feats like Dex, according to Onyx. Someone says, yeah, this is one of my thoughts, that Daredevil could be a swashbuckler class archetype, and Slayer could be a thaumaturge class archetype. Interesting. Theoretically, though maybe sometimes you do want a new class. I don't know. We'll have to see what these risky actions look like. Think Jackie Chan and Matt Murdock. I don't know Matt Murdock. Okay, also small Daredevil seems like counterproductive a bit. You will be limited who you can do athletics against. Titan Wrestler goes only so far. That's true. Yeah, and, you know, I realize the benefit of occasionally having plus 10 speed isn't a big deal unless there's something I'm not thinking of. We have a halfling with a, what is that? A morning star. Okay, Daredevil feats. Bold bluffs. Your tricks allow you to find a weak spot in your foe's defenses, though you risk overextending yourself. Your attempts to feint gain the risky trait. Okay, cool. So that's some action economy. When you start your turn adjacent to somebody already, then daring stunt doesn't make as much sense, and you get to just feint and set up, hopefully making them off guard. And this gives you action compression. Breakaway attack has the risky trait. You use a piece of your surroundings to make a surprising attack. Describe how you are using your environment, throwing a pot or pan, kicking a loose post to make scaffolding fall, or slamming a door open or shut, for example. You interact with the described object and then make a melee or ranged strike with it, as appropriate for your description? Okay, yeah. Any fundamental runes you have on our hand wraps of mighty blows apply to this strike. A melee strike has the finesse and deadly d8 traits. It deals 1d8 bludgeoning damage. A ranged strike has a range increment of 20 feet and the deadly d10 and propulsive traits. It's interesting that they're deadly. It deals 1d6 bludgeoning damage. So it's like a thrown weapon, but it's deadly. If the object is a mundane level 0 item that you could have held in your hand, it is destroyed. Otherwise, it falls to the ground in your target's space. The GM can determine that your breakaway attack deals a different type of damage, depending on your description and the circumstances. Okay, seems like you need GM permission to sign off on some object. At least I would require that, because that's the flavor. The one could argue that's not required here. It has the flourish trait, so apparently this is... I usually see the flourish trait on things that are considered kind of strong, that you don't want to be able to do it more than once. But I don't see that here. It's like adding the deadly trait to your attack. That seems to be the mechanical benefit. So, yeah. Don't mess with me. Okay, so it has the risky trait. So, I'm just trying to think of how this interacts with the class features. So, before you execute this, you gain adrenaline. And adrenaline, meanwhile, the only benefit I see, unless I'm forgetting something, is you can push people into something and do damage. And if you have the press trait, you're more accurate. Now, breakaway attack does not have the press trait. Okay. So we need to see some press. I think we need to see some press actions to see this, for this to make sense. Is that a flick mace? I always thought, I suppose that's a flick mace. I remember people would joke that it was a yo-yo. I thought that was the description. It was similar to a yo-yo. Their Daredevil is cool, but still needs a little more polish. Maybe adding expert and unarmed defenses help a lot if his goal is to be this reckless class. Welcome back, 5e sneak attack. I wonder what that was in reference to. It's a risky move that can be used at any moment, basically. If you can't daring stunt, throw a pot at the enemy. It's very fitting for some, I imagine, some martial arts movies. The benefit here is interacting with the environment. I also feel the Daredevil, if it's to be its own thing, can start in training and athletics and acrobatics. However, choose one at level 1 and it auto scales with level. Okay, so people are talking about, you know, tweaking this. Almost all playtest classes are a little weaker than the goal and end up getting buffed a little bit. So don't mess with me. It's a reaction. You need to have adrenaline. If you're critically hit by an enemy, you attempt to demoralize a creature within 60 feet that is not the one. Oh, you get a critical hit on an enemy. You're the one who's doing the critical hit. You attempt to demoralize a creature within 60 feet who's different. I'm skimming. It's like a glare. You don't need to share a language. If you have legendary proficiency in intimidation, you can use this as a free action with the same trigger. So it sounds similar to Your Next, which is a level 1 rogue feat, though the trigger here is just to critically hit somebody instead of knocking them out. Huh. All right. Cool. And you need to have adrenaline. That's kind of cool. Gives you something to do with your reaction, since you don't have any reactions at the start. I don't think. Yeah. Flying hurdle stunt. This has the press trait. This is our first one with the press trait. Okay, yep, size does matter. The target cannot be more than one size larger than you. You forcefully grab an opponent and flip yourself over its head. Do an athletics check against their reflex DC. On a critical, you enter their space and the target is moved up to 10 feet into the space you just left. They must be within your reach. Okay, so they could be 10 feet away if you somehow have 10-foot reach. Your movement does not trigger reactions, though if there isn't enough room for the target to fit in the area you just vacated, the action fails. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to melee strikes against that target until the beginning of your next turn. Cool. Except it has the press trait, so you're on your maximum multiple attack penalty by this point for that +1. So that sounds a little... Ugh. As critical regular success, it's exactly the same, except you don't get that +1 circumstance bonus to your -10 attack. Or -8 or -6 if you're using something with the press trait. Failure. You don't get to flip over them, but you can immediately step, though you must remain adjacent to the target. Okay. So that's a little half success. Critical failure. You become clumsy 1, and you trigger any reactions as if you had performed a manipulate action. Okay. But this kind of cool flavor, though. You go into their... You trade spaces with them. I guess it's... But why would you do this, though? I guess if it's a narrow hallway, and that +1 bonus to attacks is like not that useful if you're out on your third attack. And your multiple attack penalty will be smaller because it's press. Oh, lots of comments. The joke is that the feature needs GM approval. It's a fairly large mean that sneak attack in 5e needs GM approval, and a bad DM will deny it even when they shouldn't. Okay. I feel this class needs more map reduction, so you want to do some move to get adrenaline and then do a press move. Okay. Onyx says, I think the big thing with a lot of the press stunts and why they are good is that a lot are basically just do X combat maneuver, but target a save that they don't normally target. Okay. That's true. This is kind of... What you could do flying hurdle stunt is you can set up a flank. Like, if it's or put someone in a more disadvantageous position, you put them behind your front lines. Maybe that's the use here. And you are less inaccurate on this press action because of your adrenaline. Pushing them into a wall inflicts stunt damage, though true, though I don't think this feat can be used to push them in a wall. They go into your space. Daredevil press actions have agile or agile grace if they were already agile. Agile or agile grace? What does that mean? Does something have a finesse trait? Do some things have finesse trait? Okay, that's something cool here about the breakaway attacks. They all have the finesse trait. Oh no, only the melee attack does, not the range strike. Oh, except the range strike uses your dexterity, duh. So you could use your dexterity with these strikes too. Okay. Alright. Anyway. Forceful kickoff stunt. Okay. You plant a foot in an enemy's chest, pushing them away as you leap backward. Attempt an acrobatics check against your fortitude DC. So, since you get 2 level 1 class feats, maybe you have this for reflex and this for fortitude. That bonus feat has to have a certain trait, though? It must have the risky trait. Okay. Okay, if you critically succeed, they are pushed 15 feet away from you. Wow. That's pretty significant. You leap away from the target and this movement doesn't trigger reactions. So I see a lot of like moving people around in the battlefield going on. Okay. Regardless, you get to leap away from the target even if you fail. But if you critically fail, you are off guard and don't leap. Okay. A regular success, they're only pushed 5 feet. If you're using Agile, it's only -3 with Adrenaline on the second attack. Oh yeah, because of the remaster, if you're using a free hand, because the fist attack is Agile, you're basically getting only a -3 on these. This is true. Easily Bored Gamer says, I think the basic idea is something like do an attack or something to gain adrenaline, and then either move the enemy or the Daredevil themselves for positioning with the party and or stunt damage. Okay. Yeah. Though none of these are you doing damage, though. But, of course, it's not all about DPR. Forceful Kickoff says Onyx is a way to reposition using acrobatics. Okay. True. And this uses athletics. So yeah, I saw someone comment that everyone's basically going to be +4 strength, +3 dex at level 1. I can see the argument here for that. Yeah, and that's interesting that you want to be good in both stats. That's kind of unusual to have a character that wants to be good at 2 stats. Well, if they want to be good at athletics and acrobatics actions. Pressing Pummel. 2 actions, Flourish trait. You put all your might behind a follow-up attack. By the way, just an aside, I don't know if there's any reason why to add Flourish trait to a 2-action activity in Pathfinder. I don't know if there's any situation where that's necessary. Just a random aside. You put all your might behind a follow-up attack. Oh, it has a press trait. Make a melee strike. If the strike hits, you deal an extra d10 damage on the same type of damage as your strike. And this increases up to 3d10 at 18th level. Okay, so this is going to be more accurate than someone else's follow-up strike and does extra damage. It's much less likely to crit than your first strike, but you will do extra damage on a regular hit. Cool. Onyx says they all do damage with the effect that if a movement effect can't be completed because they hit a prop, you just do basically a strike at them. I guess so. Though, you know, I did feel like, oh, my cat's about to knock off something. It did seem to be less... What was that damage? Again, everything's not everything is DPR, but people will think about these things. It's a d6 plus your strength modifier. And by the time you get to 4th level, you can have striking runes, and this is still at 1d6. At 13th level, there's greater striking runes, so triple weapon die, but this is doing 4d6. Okay. So that positioning needs to be important to compensate for the... I mean, it did say at the start, you might not hit as hard as other martial characters, but your follow-up attacks are often more reliable. So you tend to hit more often. Okay. So you could attack with your... You can strike with your opening attack, and then do a press action that's more accurate. That's almost like a flurry ranger who has marked their prey. Though I'm trying to remember what those... I think the penalties were for the flurry ranger. I want to say that they were... The reduction in the penalty was bigger for the ranger. But, you know, it shouldn't be equal, probably. Okay. Okay, Mr. Fabulous says they can't do any other flourish action like Flurry of Blows. Yep, I forgot about that case. Correct, you're correct. Blue Thumbnail, welcome. I see you say hi to Megan. Okay. Okay. Okay, Pressing Pummel. Yeah, this is like the damage Daredevil. Hit once, hit again with some extra damage. That's more accurate. That's cool. Rebounding Fall Stunt. We're going to see this word stunt a lot, aren't we? Stunt. Where they use acrobatics or athletics and position that foe, I suppose. You entangle a foe's lower limbs as you attempt to bring them down with you. You fall prone and attempt an acrobatics check against the fortitude DC of a creature within your reach. Okay, when you're prone, you get -2 to your attack rolls, and acrobatics is not an attack roll. Normally. No, it's a skill check. Critical success. They fall prone and you deal stunt damage to them. Oh, that's cool. And you immediately stand, which doesn't trigger reactions. That's cool. Success. As critical success, but the target takes no damage. Failure. Though you don't bring your target down with you, you can immediately crawl away from them. That's a funny trade-off. So you want to succeed, so you continue to stand at the end. The aim is to make them fall prone. This is interesting. It targets fortitude. So, okay, trip, the normal way to make someone fall prone is your athletics, which is strength-based against their reflex DC. This is your dexterity skill against their fortitude DC. So this is a way to start tripping otherwise very reflexive foes. So this is already giving you some more versatility if you really want to make somebody prone. That seems to be the secret here. It targets fortitude DC. Okay. Yeah, they all vary from the base athletics actions. Flying hurdle stunt kind of pushed them. Pulled them into your space, but it used a reflex DC, whereas reposition targets your fortitude DC, their fortitude DC. Forceful kickoff is an acrobatics check against. Okay, so it's similar to shove, but you're using your acrobatics. Wow, I'm going through this much more slowly than I anticipated. I thought I was going to go through both classes in 3 hours. Tell me if you enjoy this kind of detailed analysis, or I should go faster. I don't know. We've gone through 6 pages, but it's all about the feats, isn't it? Okay. You immediately stand. Okay. Scrambling retreat. It's a reaction. When you're targeted by a melee attack, you need to have adrenaline, which it sounds like you're going to have adrenaline every turn. Like, if you have a feat like this, you're going to want to have adrenaline every turn because it's easy enough to daring stunt, unless you're next to somebody who has a reactive strike. Okay, but if someone targets you with a melee attack, you slip away, and you get a +2 circumstance bonus to AC. After the attack, you can stride up to half your speed. If you do, the attacker can stride to follow you as a free action, keeping you in their reach throughout their movement until you stop moving or they have moved their full speed. Huh, that's interesting. So it lets you get away, but it seems like the point is to lure them because they have that option. Or you just want to fucking get away from them. But they can, as a free action, go after you. So they very likely will go after you. It's interesting. So this seems to be like a way to, all these feats seem to prioritize positioning in the battlefield. And I'd be interested to see actual gameplay, actual play testing, to see how valuable this is and how it can be leveraged by the party. Like, maybe you want to pull them into an AoE effect, or make it easier for an ally to flank them somehow. Pushing someone 15 feet can knock them over a cliff as well. That's pretty strong. It's stronger than the shove action. Okay. Ooh, there's a lot of comments. Mental Kitty says, the thing with the bonus they get to map is it must be a press action, so a follow-up attack wouldn't get the reduction by itself. However, we do have one exception here with a pressing pummel feat. This allows you to strike using the reduced map with a press action. That's the one exception we see. So I see a lot of people taking this. This might be a very popular feat. Unless the movement is, you know, worth what it's advertised. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing comments. So people watching in the future, live chat replay is on. You can see what I'm reading. Ah, it just occurred to me the -3 map is almost like giving them fighter accuracy on their second attack. Interesting. Almost. Hello, Robert. You can move them towards allies or have them proc allies' reactive strikes. Okay. The movement itself won't proc a reactive strike. Oh, well this one, the scrambling retreat, could proc a reactive strike because they actually take the stride action. That's true. It's not forced movement. That's cool. So if you have a fighter in your party, this is cool. Mr. Fabulous says, I feel like this could have been called the Brawler instead of Daredevil. Interesting. Though, this, you know, one of the pieces of artwork does have a weapon. So when I hear Brawler, I think of an unarmed fighter. But yeah, let's see. Easily Bored Gamer says, I like mobility and positioning in games, so in theory, I'm interested in seeing how this turns out. Yeah, me too. I've been running a 4E campaign on my Discord community side channel. Rules Lawyer Discord community channel, if you are interested, where positioning is super important. And you get to manipulate enemies' positions a lot. Time to make a Daredevil with Commander archetype and have more control over the tokens than the GM does. Commander main is pretty crazy. Lots of positioning power. I've noticed a lot of people having contention with the name of the Daredevil. Yeah, I'm expecting, when I hear Daredevil, I think of Evel Knievel and people doing like crazy acrobatics things on the battlefield. And like, I just did a video on jumping and how monks can like be really good at jumping. That there'd be more gymnastics involved with the Daredevil. I thought I would see more of that. And that was, and you know, didn't they use in their Paizo post, they had the picture of an acrobat for the Daredevil. Anyway, that's what I put in my thumbnail. Okay, that was Scrambling Retreat. That was cool. Wheeling Pole Stunt. The target can't... Okay, I'm not going to mention this requirement, which seems to be universal. They have to be not more than one size larger than you. You pull at an enemy's armor or clothes to shift their position. Attempt an athletics check against the reflex DC of a creature within your reach. Your target is grabbed until... If you critically succeed, they're grabbed until the end of your next turn unless you move or your target escapes. You step away from the target and move the target up to 10 feet. It must remain adjacent to you and it remains grabbed by you. Okay, so you grapple and pull them. Regular success is similar. And it's you move 5 feet. And it's a step. You could have stepped 10 feet with the critical success. Failure, if you already had the target grabbed or restrained, those conditions end. You can step away from the target. Critical failure, your stunt backfires. You trigger reactions as if you had moved out of the square you started in. Okay. Okay. So this is similar to the grapple action. But here, what would it be? Grapple is athletics versus fortitude. Here it's athletics versus reflex. Yeah, so that seems to be the trick here, targeting different defenses and using different skills. Okay. And you get to pull them towards you. I mean, pull them back with you. So it's like grapple plus and against a different defense. Okay. And all these stunts have the press trait. So I guess the idea is you make an opening attack or opening daring stunt. You're daring, or an opening daring stunt, which might include tripping them. This might be popular, to trip them or to grapple them with your opening move, and then to do a press stunt. Okay. All right. All right, that's 9 level 1 feats, and you get to choose 2 at level 1. Okay. Cool. All right. Comments. Okay. All right. Ooh. One of my players in 2 of my campaigns is commenting. Okay. All right, second level feats. Ooh, what's this word? Caroming? I must look this up with the power of Google. Caroming. What does caroming mean? Carome. To strike and rebound. The car caromed off a tree. Carom. Never heard this word. I have to think that the piezo staffers all have the thesauruses. Caroming charge. You need adrenaline, 2 actions. You move between your foes and batter them as you pass by. Okay, I feel like level 1 was to give you some basic building blocks. Like how in D&D 4E you have a bunch of at-will attacks that are like basically your bread and butter. But then as you go up in level, you get more unique things. More spectacular things. Okay, second level, caroming charge. You move between your foes and batter them as you pass by. You stride twice. You can move through enemies as part of this movement, and you deal stunt damage to each enemy you move through. This can trigger reactions, and you can't end your movement in an enemy space. Cool, this is like guaranteed damage. Oh, I have one question. We've had a lot of feats that say they cannot be more than 1 size larger than you. But by rule, apparently, the Titan Wrestler skill feat doesn't work with any of these. So if you meet anybody who's huge, you're kind of screwed. If you're a medium creature, you can't use these things. There's got to be some feat that lets you affect larger foes. There has to be. If there isn't, there should be. Or Titan Wrestler needs to work on these. All right, but this is guaranteed damage. That's cool. So you can walk through like, oh wow, this is like trample. You're like trampling them. This could be kind of strong. Well, or maybe it's like it's 2 actions, but it's like you're trampling them for only 2 actions. And they have no saving throw. And you deal your stunt damage to all of them. But you must have adrenaline, so you need to spend 1 action to charge up your adrenaline. Okay, cool. Yeah, Onyx says this may be one of the best feats. Makes you a pinball wizard. All right. There isn't one right now? There isn't one that lets you affect larger creatures? Yeah, that needs to be addressed. Because that would be wild if, as it is now, you couldn't affect somebody huge. And by the high levels, like a lot of your enemies are huge. And you'll be a sad daredevil. Opening Gambit. Free action when you roll initiative. It has the risky trait. I'm trying to remember what risky trait does. Oh, what did our sidebar say about these traits? Actions with this trait grant you adrenaline. until the beginning of your next turn. Okay. So this will give you adrenaline when you roll initiative. You perform a minor stunt that might allow you to make the first move. Do an acrobatics or athletics check against a standard DC for the highest level creature in the encounter, though the GM can assign a different DC based on circumstances. Regardless of the result, you gain adrenaline during your first round of the encounter. Success means your initiative is 19 plus your initiative modifier. Failure is it's 1 plus your initiative modifier. Okay, risks and rewards, right? So you basically throw the dice to see if you'll be at the start or end of initiative. So what's this like? At level 2, you'll probably have a +8 modifier, and the standard DC will be 16 if you're facing a level 2 foe. If you're facing a level 4 foe, it'll be 19. Okay, so it's a little over 50-50. Yes, it will expire at the start of your first turn, your adrenaline, if you use this. Ikemo says, I think class-based abilities shouldn't have size limitations in general. Skill actions are broad and accessible to all, as is the ability to overcome their limitations. This is different. Okay. All right. That was the opening gambit. It has the fortune trait. Interesting. So you cannot spend a hero point on this roll. I think. Yeah, you can't. Though it would seem like this should give the fortune trait to your initiative roll. Whereas this is a different check. I wonder if that should be written differently. Like, you might want to spend a hero point on this roll. Because as of now, you can't. And it seems like fortune, the target of that fortune trait should be the initiative roll itself, not your check. All right, this is very rules lawyery. I'm going to keep moving on. Stunt driver. As you control a vehicle, you feel your adrenaline surging. When you take a reckless action while piloting a vehicle, that action gains the risky trait. Okay, I don't remember the driving subsystem, but when you're reckless, you become risky. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to the piloting check to keep control of the vehicle. In addition, you treat all vehicles as props, regardless of their size, and can use them as props while you are on board the vehicle, even when they are in motion. Oh, that's cool. Very niche for the certain kind of campaign, though. So, get to use them as props. Okay, so you get to hit people into cars, is what I'm getting from this. Trip up. 2 actions, press. You follow up an attack with a sweeping blow at a target's lower limbs. Make a melee strike. If you hit and deal damage, they're clumsy 1 until the start of your next turn. Clumsy 2 on a crit. Okay. Alright, so compared to pressing pummel, which does extra damage, this sets up your party. Okay. Tumbling tricks. You slip through enemy spaces with minor stunts. Your attempts to tumble through gain the risky trait and gain the following critical success and critical failure outcomes. So this lets you tumble and gain adrenaline while doing so. Critical success means you don't trigger reactions. Critical failure, you are off guard until the start of your next turn. Okay. So this is for that situation where you don't want to trigger reactions and you want to get adrenaline while tumbling. It all sounds very niche. Like you want to be able to tumble through a foe and get adrenaline. But you still already have what? The level 1 action? Daring stunt where you can just stride and get adrenaline? So this seems pretty niche to me. If this has an addition, okay. But it's if you don't want to trigger reactions, if you know they have reactions. Okay. And that requires a critical success. I don't know if that should be a critical success, honestly. It seems like this should be stronger to me. Unless there's something I don't see. Looking at comments. This class is a bit weird because being smaller turns larger creatures into props, but if something is too big, your abilities just won't work. What was the prop thing? Huh. Prop is interesting because they need to be larger than you. So that's a little weird because let's say you're small and you reposition a large foe into a medium creature. They take stunt damage because the medium creature, the prop, is larger than you, but smaller than the thing you're moving. Oh, but you couldn't do that. Okay, reposition if you have a Titan Wrestler feat. You could reposition something 2 size categories larger than you. But that's a little weird. That's just a little weird mechanically. Thematically, I mean. Because it compares only to your size, no matter what you're moving. Okay. Comments. Yeah, it's a little confusing. Yeah. Okay. So, wall sweep, a reaction. If you would be moved by a force movement effect, you need to have adrenaline and are adjacent to at least one prop. This is all very situational already. You use the environment around you to gain momentum from your force movement. You can increase the amount of force movement by up to 10 feet. If you do, you decide where your force movement takes you instead of the origin of the force movement. Though you can't end this force movement in your original space. Okay. So, if someone's trying to reposition you, which does not happen often, or shove you, which doesn't happen often, or use some special ability, if you are next to a prop, so someone who's larger than you, or a wall, or some fixture, then you get to decide where you move. That's what I'm getting. That seems super situational. Okay, 4th level, Bouncing Hurl. You need Breakaway Attack. That was the one that you used up something in the environment to attack with. Bouncing Hurl. You bounce an item off one foe to hit another. You can use Breakaway Attack as a 2-action activity to interact, to pick up an object, to make a ranged strike. It needs to be ranged. Then as it ricochets off your first target, you can then make the second ranged strike at the same multiple attack penalty. Oh, that's cool. Against a different enemy that is within 15 feet of the first target. This strike functions as if the target were within 1 range increment of you, regardless of the actual distance. The item used to make these attacks isn't destroyed or doesn't fall to the ground after you make the second attack. Okay, that's interesting. So they need to be relatively close to each other. And it's the same attack. This seems kind of useful, like to make 2 attacks at your full map. But it does mean spreading your damage, which usually want to target a single foe and kill them in Pathfinder. And strangely enough, the item does not get destroyed, unlike with vanilla Breakaway Attack. Daring Reversal. Okay, this sounds like a fighter feat. Quick Reversal. You need to have adrenaline and be flanked. Make a melee strike against one of the flanking enemies that is within your reach. Oh, and then attempt an athletics check to shove that enemy. You don't need a hand free to attempt the shove. This has the same multiple attack penalty as the initial attack and doesn't count toward your multiple attack penalty. The other enemy flanking you is then off guard to you until the end of your next turn. Okay, whereas The fighter feat lets you strike at both with the press trait. This one lets you strike at one, get an athletics check to shove. I assume... Hold on. Does the Audacious Combatant apply to that shove? It apparently does not, technically. You get the reduced map when the action you use has the press trait. However, I think the intention here is that your shove also has the press trait. I mean, it's a subordinate action under this. They might need to clarify that. I'm not sure I'm reading that right, but and then instead of striking that next foe, you make them off guard to you. So that's cool. So you might succeed at ending their flanking of you and then make them off guard to you until the end of your next turn. Oh, that's pretty limited. It has to be... You're down to your full map now at this point. And they're only off guard to you. I wonder if there's any reactive strike feat for this class or not. Because, yeah. Having them, you know... We keep seeing... This is the second time we see they get a penalty to your full map attack, which is not the most exciting thing. Bouncing hurl sounds like electric arc with an attack roll. That's funny. Tumbling tricks would be cool with a swashbuckler archetype, I guess. I think tumbling is very important to Dex Daredevil. Gives them a consistent risky maneuver they can do for adrenaline. But then they can also stride to get adrenaline. I don't know. I still feel it's niche. Okay. Simulationist brain hurting. Gameless brain says, it's fine. A pixie tossing an elephant at a dwarf is awesome. Except by what you said. Apparently there's no way to use these actions against something much larger than you. We'll have to see. But I have to think that they're going to errata that or change that so that you can. Because, you know, this is a game that gets pretty gonzo at high levels where you can shove a Tarrasque, right? Why not do Daredevil things against a Tarrasque when you're a Daredevil? Oh, Daring Reversal makes them off guard until the end of your next turn. Did I misread that? Oh, next turn. My brain said start of your next turn. Okay, good. Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you. Okay, good. I like this stream format. I don't fuck up in my edited video where I try to interpret everything on my own. Okay, exhilarating athlete. You need to be an expert in athletics. The thrill of danger helps you to jump higher and farther. Okay, here's some jumping. While you have adrenaline, you gain climb and swim speeds equal to half your land speed. Oh, wow. Okay. The DCs of your high jump and long jumps decrease by 10. This doesn't combine with other abilities that reduce those DCs. Okay. Because, you know, a successful long jump lets you jump 2 feet higher. Yeah. The distance you can move with a vertical leap increases to 5 feet. That's already in the base vertical leap. I just did a video on this. That should say increases by 5 feet. Your distance for a horizontal leap increases to 15 feet if your distance is at least 15 feet, or to 20 feet if your speed is at least 30 feet. Oh, goodness. Why is it so limiting? The monk feats and a lot of other items and things just add 5 feet to your horizontal leap. This one... Well, anyway, this still stacks with those other abilities. Never mind. This just changes your base distance, I suppose. As long as there isn't more than one effect that does this. That defines, you know, hard codes the distance you leap. Yeah, there's a barbarian's feat like this. Yes. High flying tumble stunt. You jump through an enemy's space, possibly rendering it off balance. You leap horizontally. During this movement, you can try to move through the space of one enemy. Attempt an athletics check against the enemy's reflex DC as soon as you try to enter its space. Okay, so this is like tumble through, except you're using athletics. But again, we're using a different stat and a different, yeah. Critical success. You move through their space. If you, excuse me. If you don't have enough speed to move all the way through, you can get the same effect. You get the same effect as a failure. The enemy is off guard until the end of your turn. Okay. Unlike tumble through, though, it's not difficult terrain, as their spaces are not difficult terrain, it sounds like. Success is critical success, except the enemy isn't off guard. Okay. Oh no, they're off guard until the end of your turn. Oh, this is a very, yeah, this is another, my quote complaint from before. This is your, you're now limited to your full map actions, and this expires at the end of your turn. So this only, and off guard only affects AC. So this affects your full map attack, if that were wise. And your full map attack will not have the press trait, because I haven't seen an ability that does that. So it's going to be at your full map attack penalty. Okay. Failure. Your movement ends and you trigger reactions as if you had moved out of the square you started in. Does tumble through have that failure as part of regular failure, where you trigger reactions? Because this makes it kind of risky if you're going against something that might have reactive strike. Oh yeah, tumble through regular failure did trigger reactions. Okay. Critical failure. You first fall prone before triggering reactions. Okay. All right. Yep, you want to make sure you have enough distance before you attempt this, otherwise you're going to fail. Wall slam. There need to be 2 props on opposite sides of you. You scramble up between 2 props to gain a height advantage on an enemy. Leap vertically. You must end your leap in an unoccupied space that is no more than 10 feet from your original position. Original position from when you started leaping, right? Not before you started this. If you end your movement within melee reach of at least one enemy, you can attempt an athletics check to trip that enemy with a +2 circumstance bonus to the check. So this is like super trip. However, I have to think this is 10 feet from where you started jumping, not your original position. Am I wrong? Well, anyway, as written, this is, you gotta, okay. You have to start position between the 2 props, so this doesn't include a stride even. You do a single leap. Okay, I misread this. There's no striding up to them. You start between the 2 props, you leap no more than 10 feet, and do a super trip, meaning +2. Okay. So having 2 adjacent walls is kind of niche, but if you're between a wall and a foe who's larger than you, then yeah. Yeah, this class is a little weird. You do want to be smaller than people, but you also want to be big enough to affect them with other abilities. Okay. Okay. I don't know if this should be 2 actions. I feel like 1 action's enough, because this is pretty situational already, and you get a plus. Okay, yeah, pretty situational. All right. I don't know if I'll get to the Slayer today, folks, because I'm going so slowly and in detail through this. Yeah, I'm aware of the larger creature than you being a prop. But again, that's situational. How often does that happen? I think more common is that there's two foes that you walk in between them to be flanked by them. And they even have to be on opposite sides of you. So if this is you and there's an enemy here and an enemy here, you don't qualify. Even though in theater of the mind, one could argue that you are between them, you know? Eh. I feel like this should be less restrictive or be a single action or something. Like two things that are adjacent to you, you know? I don't know. Okay, double breakaway. We're at 6th level feats. Double breakaway. So this is the one where you use something in the environment. You break 2 items simultaneously against a single enemy's body. When you have 2 hands free, you can use this as a 2-action activity to interact twice to pick up 2 objects and make a melee strike with both objects simultaneously against one target. So the 4th level feat was ranged. This is melee against one target. This does an extra die of damage. If you critically hit with this strike, the target is also stupefied 1 until the beginning of your next turn. As normal, both items are destroyed or fall to the ground. Okay, I'm trying to remember what damage this does. It uses your hand wrap rune. Okay, all right. So I guess the point again is, you know, to get... If you want that D8 damage, if that's better than what you would normally inflict, and or the deadly D8 trait. Okay. Ah, it's a single strike. That's interesting. So, you do an extra die of damage, and it doesn't cost you more actions. That's good. Am I understanding this right? And has the flourish trait. Okay. Okay. The ideal size for this class is 5 feet shorter than whoever you're fighting. True. Yeah, you can use the enemy you're attacking as a prop. Yeah. Oh, you can have a caster cast wall spells. That's true. Or a wood kineticist with the tree power. Interesting. If an enemy has multiple reactions and reactive strike, it's very rare that foes have multiple reactions, and this seems like one trigger to me. Well, no, actually 2 triggers, because interact will trigger. And you're interacting twice. Yeah. Okay. Is a long pole I'm carrying satisfy the condition of being a prop? Not according to these rules. I wonder if this is the thief acrobat with a pole. Maybe they could use a pole. Head smash. You have adrenaline. You need to have adrenaline and have a creature grabbed or restrained, and you and them are both adjacent to the same prop. Okay? Fueled by adrenaline, you drive an enemy's head into a sturdy object. Attempt an athletics check against their fortitude DC. Crit success. You deal stunt damage to them. They do a fortitude save against your class DC or become stunned 2. That's powerful. Stunned 2. But this has the incapacitation trait. They remain grabbed or restrained by you until the end of your next turn. Regular success, similar, but they are only stunned 1. Failure, you deal half your stun damage to the target, and they are no longer grabbed or restrained by you. Critical failure, they can also try to grab you. You don't do any damage to them. They can try to grab you. Oh, and they succeed against grabbing you. Or make you land prone. Okay. So this is like grapple plus with the chance of stunning them. and you do half and doing damage. But well, not grapple plus. You need to already have them grabbed. So this will have the press trait. And this is not grapple plus. This is something after the grappled. I take back that phrase. So this is to possibly stun them. Your goal is to stun them. But it calls for a saving throw. Okay, this is to do stun damage and possibly stun them. There you go. Okay. All right, that seems pretty good. Rushing Stride. Oh, this one requires that you not have adrenaline. You run headlong into danger to stoke the fire of your adrenaline. You stride. At the end of this movement, if you are within melee range of an enemy, you can make a melee strike against that enemy. If you do, you are off guard against all other enemies except the one you attacked until the beginning of your next turn. Oh, risks and rewards, right? So every turn you don't have adrenaline when your turn starts. This lets you walk up to somebody and attack them with a single action. Okay. Head Smash, by the way, that feat, your level 1, I keep forgetting what it's called. Daring Stunt ability, you can go up to somebody and grab them and gain adrenaline with your first action, and then Head Smash with this. All right. You can do that with all of the... Well, I'm just pointing out this in particular because it requires that they be grabbed. Weapon Twist Stunt. Okay, you must have at least one hand free. It's press. You grab at an enemy's weapon and attempt to spin it with the turn of your body. Attempt an acrobatics check against the reflex DC of a creature within reach. If you are wielding a weapon with a disarm trait in your other hand, you get a +1 circumstance bonus to this check. Okay. Critical success, you knock the item out of the grasp. It falls to the ground in your choice of the target space or your space if you are adjacent to the target. I have a rules question about disarm that I've been having. I assume the intention is that you can have the weapon get picked up by an ally. Disarm has the weapon fall to the ground in the target space. Here, it can be in your space. So why is this important if not that there is an obstacle to picking up an enemy in the target space? Now it's making me feel anxious about my ruling. I don't know if there's a ruling on that, whether you can pick up a weapon in an enemy space without some kind of extra check. Okay, anyway. So this is like the disarm action, yeah? Success. They get a -2 circumstance penalty to attacks with the item until the end of their next turn. But unlike disarm, this does not improve future attempts to disarm. Wait, I thought that's what disarm... Did I thought it did two things. Yeah, it did two things. This one does less than a regular disarm because it doesn't improve future disarm attempts. Failure. Your target has a -1 circumstance penalty to attacks with the item until the end of their next turn. Oh, this is good. Even a failure causes a -1 penalty, which is pretty significant against a very powerful, scary melee boss. Critical failure. Your stunt backfires. Your target can either force you to drop one item you're wielding, or immediately make a melee strike against you as a free action. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, ooh, lots of comments. Yeah, Karaming Charge had no limit to how many foes you can damage. So, like, if you face, like, 10 goblins and 4 spider swarms, you can Karaming attack all of them, damage all of them, and no check required. So that one seems like it's going to get a nerf, I have to guess. Like that one feat for the Guardian from the Guardian playtest. Okay. This class, Easily Board Gamer says, this class definitely feels like it's super GM dependent on how useful it is. Maps, not interesting enough. Too big of enemies or no help from your party, and a lot of the class feats lose their value. Okay. Yeah, you need the planets to align. Though we kind of like having things to align, like synergies, don't we? It's just that the baseline seems like, you need those things in order to be competent, when it should be like a little more like, without them you're below competent, and with them you're above competent. Any adventure path usually has small enough rooms that the walls work plenty. True. There's a number of adventure paths. Like if you're in Abomination Vault, for example. There don't seem to be many abilities that have risky but not press. And this is one of them. Which one are we talking about? Rushing Stride. Well, yeah. It doesn't involve... Yeah, though this is kind of going towards an enemy, and seems like it's opening your turn, so it's a little different from the other ones. It doesn't need the press trait, it seems. You know, if an enemy has a level 0 weapon, a Daredevil could destroy it by throwing it at a target after it's been disarmed. That's true. Though, at least in adventure paths, they usually don't have level 0 items. But some do. After a certain level. All Phoenix Down says, most rounds you'll want to open with the risky action to gain adrenaline immediately, then follow with the press action, but your options for that first risky action are pretty limited. Huh, okay. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of press actions, but the risky actions seem... Yeah, there's not a whole lot of choice there. But then I don't know what the design space would be, you know? Like, risky seems to be setting things up, yeah, by nature, since you start every turn not having adrenaline. So I don't know how necessary it is to have like 10 risky options, you know? I don't know, I could be wrong. Okay, that's the level 6 feats. Level 8. Accompanying strike. Press trait. You must have used your previous action to make a melee strike with a one-handed weapon that missed. Okay? Though your first attack missed, you bring your weapon around for another blow. Make a strike with the same weapon, adding the backswing trait and increasing the size of the damage die by 1 step. Okay. So this next attack still has map, though it's reduced map because it has the press trait, assuming you have adrenaline, right? The reduced map is only if you have adrenaline. Yeah, it does. So I assume this works with rushing stride, because that gives you adrenaline. Okay. So it's not at the same accuracy as your previous missed blow. But it has the backswing trait, which makes it +1 to your attack, and you get a little more damage, okay? So it's like, you know, some insurance, a less inaccurate second attack. Even more less inaccurate. That was a tortured string of adjectives, but yes. Escape Shuffle. If you're grabbed by a creature, you do this. Even if the enemy thinks they've got you right where they want you, you squirm from their grasp, forcing them to move. You attempt to escape from being grabbed or restrained by a creature. If you succeed, you can also attempt to reposition that creature. Don't increase your multiple attack penalty until after both checks. Regardless of whether you succeed at repositioning your target, you can step. Hold on. Okay. You have to successfully escape in order to do the reposition. Okay, I thought you could step even if you're still grappled, but not true. So you need to escape. 2 actions to escape. And if you succeed, you also can try to reposition them. Okay. And then you can step away as if you critically succeeded on escaping. Okay. All right. Heightened awareness. When you have adrenaline and you do a flat check to target a concealed or hidden creature, you roll twice and take the higher result. In addition, when you are within 10 feet of an undetected creature of your level or lower and have adrenaline, that creature is instead only hidden from you. All right, so you detect invisible creatures. Interesting. So if you have adrenaline, you're like sniffing around. You can like have a preternatural hearing, apparently. Super senses. And if you're doing adrenaline every turn, it's kind of like blind fight, except you need adrenaline. Yeah, all right. Oh, but this lets you roll twice and take the higher result, which is kind of similar, slightly less good compared to blind fight, I feel. Am I wrong? But you can detect people within 10 feet instead of 5 feet, I think. Anyway, someone can look up blind fight and compare. It's slightly different, but seems similar in power. Scrambling roll, level 8 feet. You need scrambling retreat. Which one was that? Scrambling retreat was the one... when you're attacked, you can try to lure them to go after you while giving a +2 circumstance bonus to your AC. Here, when you use scrambling, you can use scrambling retreat before attempting a reflex save in addition to its original trigger. If you do, the circumstance bonus applies to your reflex save against the triggering effect. If you stride after attempting the save and the source of the effect is a creature, that creature can stride up to the same distance toward you as a free action. Okay, so it just increases the number of situations where you can use scrambling retreat when you're forced to make a reflex save. So, all right, you cannot use this if they try to trip you. You must make a reflex save. So it's not when they attack your reflex DC. So when does this come up? When someone casts Fireball on you or Electric Arc? You can try to retreat. It's kind of weird, the situation that this comes up. It doesn't have them... it's not very often you're forced to make a reflex save. There's some situations I've seen with the commander when the commander does a tactic, but yeah, this often seems to be someone who's some distance away from you going after you. That's interesting thematically. Yeah, I'm not sure if this should be also extended to someone targets a reflex DC. You would think, right? Okay, 10th level, Deadly Advantage. You take the upper hand against foes in a weakened state. When you have adrenaline, you gain a circumstance bonus to damage rolls for strikes against clumsy or enfeebled creatures. Ah. We've seen one instance of applying clumsy. The bonus is equal to double the target's clumsy or enfeebled condition value. Ooh, that seems like a small number. If you're a master in athletics, increase the bonus to triple. And you're probably going to be a master in athletics by this level. Okay, triple sounds better. But yeah, if someone can make someone have synesthesia, this will be nice. But yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of situations where you can apply either of those conditions yourself. So it has to be, you need to get help from an enemy. See, if there's trip up, I think that's the only situation where you can apply these conditions. Trip up of your abilities. And you usually can't do this with basic actions, clumsy or enfeebled, so you need help from an ally. All right. Huh, did something increase your map twice? The one that had the shove included? I think it does increase your map twice. Or the reposition one, yeah. This would, escape and reposition both have the attack trait, so your map would increase twice. Yep. I'm gonna guess that people are gonna, I've not seen Reddit, but I'm gonna guess that there's gonna be some drama there about this feels weak. But then that happens with every playtest. Like 90% of the playtests have been, they get strengthened in the final version. Calm down. Or situational, hit or miss. Sometimes you have to take big risks to take down your enemy. Make a melee strike. It gains the following critical success, failure, and critical failure effects. Okay. Ooh, your crit does triple damage. I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of this effect. Failure. Your attack deals half of any damage it would have dealt on a hit, excluding all damage dice. Oh, what? Just your flat modifiers? For instance, if your strike would normally deal 2d6 plus 6 slashing damage on a hit, you would deal 3 slashing damage. Okay, so super middling compensation. However, this is like you would never not want. Okay, let's see the critical failure effect. You miss, and the target of your strike can make a melee strike against you as a reaction. Okay, that's the downside. But it sounds like you would want to do this unless it's a strong boss creature, who's higher level, harder, like high AC. You would want to use this all the time as your press action, and as a press action for you. So it's a smaller multiple attack penalty as well. That seems like it'll be a popular feat. Vigorous adrenaline. You have adrenaline? You pause to take a breath to fortify yourself. You gain temporary hit points equal to your level plus your constitution modifier that lasts until the start of your next turn. Oh. So you can be tanky with this. So you're likely to add 10 plus con mod every turn if you spend an action. Additionally, you reduce the value by 1 of clumsy, enfeebled, or sickened. Oh, you then lose adrenaline, so do it as your last action on your turn. And a lot of those stunts, were they single action or 2 actions? They're single action. So you can do your stunt and then do this as your third action. So this is something you can do as when you have full map, yeah? There'll be a lot of situations when you have full map, it seems like. Okay, so as I go to a next level, I will check chat. That'll be my pattern. Oh goodness, there's a lot of chat. How many people are in chat? Whoa, 99, cool. Hello. 99 people. I feel like things aligning should make it better, but still decent on its own. Sure. Not sure how the community at large feels since I don't pay a ton of attention to online spaces. Probably better for you. A bear's egg would be a level 0 item with a huge treasure value. Oh, yeah, you don't want to break treasures with this. Risky is the reworked open trait. Yeah, though it doesn't have the same effect as the old open trait. You can do multiple risky actions, but you're going to probably do it as your first action because of how it interacts with the class. All non-magical weapons are non-magical, so the Daredevil is very good at breaking mundane weapons. It's just that, I don't know, I've run adventure paths and I basically see, well, what happens is usually they have, NPCs usually have multiple dice for their attacks and have a regular weapon. But then what is the GM supposed to do when they lose their weapon? They're supposed to figure out their stats for their fists, I suppose. Why do you think it is backswing plus die increase instead of a plus flat plus 2? I don't know. But that seems to be... Backswing plus 1 to attack is generally better than plus 1 damage. And a die increases +1 damage per die roll. A die increase scales better with striking runes. It doesn't it means that it doesn't fall behind in the math. Okay. 7-word comment visibility. I wonder if you can use it to break a chain lightning by moving too far away from the next target. Huh. I think no, because chain lightning seems unconcerned about where you move after it strikes you. A lot of the Daredevil feats remind me of other classes' feats, but changed to be more athletic or acrobatic. This is kind of like the fighter feat with bonus damage to frightened creatures. Yeah. Yep, deadly advantage, I assume you're talking about. Swashbuckler's finishers do something similar with the failure. That's true. If you're talking about hit or miss. Yep. You're talking about confident finisher. Triple damage? Damn. I'll be back in a moment when I've changed my pants. Alright. Vigorous adrenaline is really nice. Yep, the temp HP one. You lose your adrenaline at the start of your next turn anyway, so why not get level plus con temp HP and reduce sickened? Yep, true. The exception would be if you have a reaction that requires adrenaline. Salutations, hello. Ronald, it's so good to see you again, especially now that No Nat One's had to stop his channel. Yeah, I didn't see his video yet. I just saw that a comment saying he got a job, so good for him. Because I'm telling you, like, you can't make a living off of YouTube. His channel was similar size to mine, and no, it's like, what is it? It's like 7% of my income, the ad revenue. Ugh. Monsters' damage die are not dependent on their weapon, generally, even if they're PC ancestry. Higher level monsters, NPCs, just deal more damage because they do, even with mundane weapons. Yeah, so... yeah, this is a whole side conversation, but like when you disarm a foe, what does a GM do at that point? You know? I imagine I would restat them, but it's kind of... if you don't have a automatic bonus progression variant, then I guess they're reduced to like a single die of damage, of fist damage. Sadness. But yeah, happy for the disarmor. And since that seemed to make sense, that should be what you do, since disarming requires a critical success. Okay. Okay, 12th level. Fortify self. Once per hour. If you have adrenaline, spend an action to brace your body for the damage you will inevitably take due to your recklessness. You gain resistance to all physical damage equal to half your level until the beginning of your next turn. So similar idea here. You become tankier for an action, but you can only do it once per hour. And it's until the start of your next turn. Huh. Alright. Resistance 6. I don't know about that once per hour idea. But if it only lasts until your next turn. But I guess in a clutch situation, it makes sense. Knee to the nethers. That's a cool name. You grab a foe to better strike at their most sensitive regions. We all know what they're talking about. Attempt to grapple a creature within your reach. If you succeed, make an unarmed melee strike against that creature you have grabbed or restrained. You don't need a free hand to make this strike. Because you're using your knee, right? If that attack hits and deals damage, the target is also sickened 1. Both the grapple and the strike count toward your multiple attack penalty, but don't increase the penalty until you made both attacks. This seems pretty strong. So you don't need to have them grabbed yet, unlike a previous feat. And you get to grab, but it's grab plus, because if you succeed, you get to knee them in the balls. You do strike damage, and you get to make them sickened as well. So this seems like grapple plus plus to me. And the strike is at the same accuracy. We have another case here where there's subordinate action. It's not clear whether the press trait applies to them, and they should clarify that. I don't know if the designers are watching this, because I don't know if I'll make an edited video. I hope the comments reach them. I've had like several comments where I wonder if something should be edited. Okay, next. Topple the dominoes. Ooh, 3 actions. Our first 3 action activity. Master in athletics, which you almost certainly will have by this point. In a swift motion, you attempt to push a handful of foes as you move past them. You stride. Choose up to 3 enemies within your reach at any point along the way and choose whether to shove or trip each one. Roll a separate athletics check against each enemy. Each attack counts towards your multiple attack penalty, but do not increase your map until you made all your attempts. Cool. So you stride once, and you get to shove or trip each one. Okay, that's cool. I think they need to revisit Caroming Charge, because I think a lot of people would prefer to deal damage to them without a check required, and that lets you stride twice, and there's no limit to how many enemies you can affect. But this one's limited to 3. Still, tripping 3 people is quite strong, and you can also shove them into props as well. Though your what? I'm just going to compare the damage you would do shoving. Stunt damage. By this point, you're doing 3d6 plus strength. Oh, the other one did stunt damage too? Yeah, and that required no check, while this one requires a successful check. So they need to revisit that second level of feat, I think. Okay. Julian says, monsters' damage die are not dependent on their weapon generally, even... Yeah, I read that already. Julio says, Slayer's pretty much... Oh. I've not been exposed to the Slayer yet. Zedrin Bot says, usually I see the damage die lines up if it's definitely a bona fide weapon. Okay, this is a side conversation. Okay. Ikemos, the tankiness, nice to see and a bit worrying. Cool. Yeah. How reliable will it be? They give Daredevils Die Hard for a reason. Yeah. Daring stunt for the trip and get adrenaline, then knee to the nethers to grapple them and sicken is a nice 2 actions. Yeah, that's a good combo indeed. Stride, trip. Then grapple, do melee damage, and sicken them for your second action. Looks like you broke the game, Onyx. I'm not surprised. Onyx is in 2 of my campaigns. That's like 5 actions with 2. That's crazy. Okay. So there's going to be arguments, of course, about people being concerned that it's weak, and then other people arguing that it's too strong. That's Reddit for you. All right. Easily bored gamer. Okay, more Slayer talk, but I want to be unspoiled. Yeah, I'm assuming the intention is that the subordinate actions have the press trait as well. Otherwise, it's weird because you're juggling different modifiers. That's like unfun in play. Take a shot every time press appears in these feats. Finally, a class for that one crazy friend who likes to do crazy things. Yeah, I have to think there's a feat. There's got to be one. I think we saw this where a foe's next to props where you can hit them, but I want you to be able to hit them multiple times, like this. Maybe that's later. By level 11 or 12, PCs will have access to greater striking, so your stunt damage is on par with greater striking. Maybe, but it's D6s though. I don't know. I mean, they said in the outset on the first page you're going to do less damage than other martial characters. Caroming Charge does feel a little overtuned. I don't know if I'd say a little. I'd say it's overtuned. I'm curious to see how it changes after the playtest. I'm not going to try to avoid the temptation to backseat dev at this stage, though. Sure. Yeah, and Oracle gets cursed for action compression. My concern would be stride trip, then use 2 double combat grab. Basically, flurry, range, or damage would need to spend an action. Oh, could you take fighter combat grab through an archetype, and does that have reduced map because you are a Daredevil? Whenever you have adrenaline, make an attack or as part of an action with a pressure. Yeah, you'd want to have combat grab with this, you guys. You want to take this fighter archetype, get combat grab, which has the press trait, which lets you make a strike at level 2. Well, level 4 if you're taking it through an archetype. And then if you succeed on your strike, you not only deal damage, but you grab the foe, no check needed. So that seems pretty strong. And optimizers, filthy optimizers will take that option. Okay, 14th level. Freewheeling strike. You are adjacent to at least one prop. Risky. 3 actions. Whoa. Using your environment, you slip past your enemies, attacking each along the way. Stride, but you must remain adjacent to props during your entire movement. Make a melee strike. Wait, you must remain adjacent to props during the whole movement. Make a melee strike against each enemy that is within your reach at any point along the way. Each attack counts toward your multiple attack penalty, but you do not increase your penalty until you have you can strike a single creature only once during your movement. Okay, you make a single stride, and you want to have your stride to be really big. This is kind of weird, though. You got to be smaller than them for them to be props. That's kind of a weird mechanic, because sometimes you'll want to deliberately be smaller and get have your ally reduce you to tiny size even, so that you can run through people, be a little little leprechaun and attack everybody. Yeah. But at least they don't have to, they can be huge or gargantuan in this case. Yeah. Okay, but this is like multiple strikes, so this will be super popular. And there's no limit. So if you can walk through 6 enemies, or walk past 6 enemies, and you can get a nasty stride at higher levels, yeah? What? You can take feats that give you 35 base speed. Yeah. Moving 7 squares, you can easily, most fights, like, walk past 3 foes. And this lets you attack each at a full accuracy. Oh. Okay, that seems pretty strong. But then by this level, some marshals have Whirlwind Strike anyway, so Whirlwind Attack. So it seems on par. Opportunistic Maneuver Stunt. Press and risky traits. You grab a foe and position it into the way of an ally's weapon. You stride. Oh, you stride as part of this. Interesting. If this movement ends with a creature in your reach, attempt an athletics check against their fortitude DC. Critical success, you move them 10 feet. It must remain within your reach. You cannot move it through obstacles. If the target ends this movement within reach of one of your allies, that ally can attempt a melee strike against it as a reaction. The target is off guard against this attack. Okay, that's a strong combo, especially since most of your martial allies probably hit harder than you. So this is really good. Though you must, it does have the press trait though. Success is like critical success, but the target is moved only 5 feet and is not off guard. Okay. So this is good. I mean, you're using your multiple attack penalty action to give somebody a full accuracy strike. Failure, you move the target 5 feet and you can't move it into... Okay. It just doesn't give the ally an opportunity to an attack. Okay. Critical failure, the target can move you up to 10 feet and then you fall prone. Like, push you away. Fuck you. Okay, shattering breakaway. Okay. We have the breakaway attack feat chain, folks. As you shatter an object against an opponent, its pieces stay lodged in their skin. Ew! You can use breakaway attack as a 2-action activity to interact to pick up an object like a glass bottle or something similar and make a melee strike with it. Okay, 2 actions must be melee this time. If it deals damage, they take persistent bleed damage equals double the number of damage dice as the item shatters against the creature's form. The target's also enfeebled too for as long as it's taking persistent bleed damage. If the item you pick up wouldn't normally be destroyed by breakaway attack, the strike functions as normal and doesn't deal persistent damage. So it needs to be breakable. There's no provision for how they can remove the object. Interesting. They're just enfeebled. That enfeebled 2 is pretty significant. I was like a little meh about it until I saw the enfeebled 2. Okay. Comments. I like the Daredevil's access to various conditions. I think they have clumsy, sicken, stunned, and field. Yeah, they seem to be debuffers. Yeah. My concern would be stride trip, then use double combat grab. Yeah, I think combat grab is a bit broken here, which I thought was kind of broken on the fighter. Now we get to reduce the multiple attack penalty. Because you normally cannot reduce, the fighter normally cannot reduce map on combat grab. But now it's reducible. And press actions tend to be pretty powerful in this system. So I'm wondering if they're going to errata this so that that class feature lets you reduce the map on press actions only if it's a Daredevil press action. We might see that come down. Sorry, folks, I might be like nerfing this class because I'm streaming about it. The funny stunt damage combo is Whirling Throw from Wrestler, says Onyx. I don't know if Whirling Throw is press. I don't remember. I'm assuming it is if you're saying so. Stunt damage also does not get weapon specialization bonus damage, so its modifier will also be lower. True. Oh, as for full map, well, there's always Assurance Athletics. Yeah, you can do Assurance Athletics, though it's usually against like at level or lower level enemies. At level 10, it's basically 60. Yeah, you can do Assurance. How would Assurance work with these things? All of these stunts you can use Assurance on, yeah? Yeah, that's a whole other possibility for you. You might want to do Assurance as a Daredevil. True. Secretly, all classes end up as a wrestler. Someone says Karoming needs to say one creature only throughout your movement. I think the intention is that it affects more than one foe, though. Though one creature might be balanced for level 2 feat. I don't know. Because that's like auto strike already, even if it's just one foe, right? It doesn't do as much damage, but it's auto. Yeah, the only cap on number of attacks how many enemies you can reach in one stride. That seems powerful against great numbers of lower level foes. Yeah. Though by the time you get to higher levels, though, I see that a lot of lower level foes are not nearly as squishy as they were at low levels. So, still, though, it's strong. That feat about vehicles is so flavorful. You can recreate a fight inside a car, which occurs in most action movies. Yeah, I don't remember how the driving subsystem works, but I imagine that you can... The intention is that you can shove somebody with your car so that their car hits a prop and takes stunt damage. Propelling strides also applies to this ability as you start the movement next to a prop, so you can easily hit 45 feet. Oh yeah, right. That was your class feature. Yes. But what kind of... Is it a status bonus, though? Because they seem to have, like, flooded status bonuses in this system. It's a circumstance bonus. Yeah. Okay. That stacks with most bonuses. Lodge in their skin. That's not very Jackie Chan. Is that's I don't know Jackie Chan that much, so I don't know if that's sarcasm or not. If you move into reach of multiple allies, can opportunistic maneuver stunt allow all of them to strike or just one? Opportunistic maneuver. No, just one. It says that ally can attempt a melee strike. So not each ally. So I think it's only one. Probably medicine check to improve flat check works as the way of removing the item. So what is the especially appropriate help for glass shards? Okay, as written, they cannot remove it though. So I think that's that. It's like intended to have this effect, you know? Hopefully they won't errata it because Flurry Ranger can already do this, and those nerfs would mean no reason to take Daredevil over Flurry Ranger. Oh, so is it true that the Flurry Ranger can apply reduced map on press actions from other classes? Is that true? I didn't know that the reduced map, I don't remember. It's been so long since I've seen the Flurry Ranger. Rolling throw isn't pressed, but Stunt only cares about force movement not getting completed. Oh yeah, you can throw them into props. Oh, that's true. Though rolling throw, I don't know how accessible that is. It sounds a lot of fun though, like a lot of fun. Caroming needs, or is it caraming? I forget how it's pronounced now. Caraming cannot hit a creature more than once. This leaves hitting the mooks, but means an elf can hit the lich 12 times for 2 actions. You can go through the same foe multiple times as written. You deal stun damage to each enemy you move through. As normal, this movement. Okay. Alright, it needs that clarification. I would rule, though, that... Yeah, it definitely needs that clarification. Because one could read it as hitting the same foe multiple times. This would fit into a Mad Max style adventure. I assume that's what you meant to type. I don't know what Max is. You can make it BMX Bandit with the vehicle feat. Mad Max is what you meant, yes. 120 feet. Elf. Oh my god, you said Tailwind. Ban! Automatic ban. I hate Tailwind. But yeah, 120 feet. Is that true? Oh yeah, for 2 strides, yes. 120 feet with caraming, blah, blah, blah. Ronald, would you reduce the press trait focus of this class? A video I saw earlier said so. I don't know. I don't know if that's... I don't know. I would have a thought on that. Opponents with reach and a reaction attack will make this class sad. Okay. Yeah, because you have to be adjacent, right, to do a lot of these things. Or you want to have reach yourself, but I've seen nothing say you need reach. That gives you, I've seen nothing that says that it gives you reach. Flurry Ranger just has lower map against a hunt and prey, no matter the action. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, so they could get combat grab. Ooh. All right. Yeah, Flurry Rangers are busted. Kidding. They need to spend an action to mark the opponent. True. Okay. Next is 16th level. Deadly Rush. Rushing Stride. This is one where you go up to somebody and hit them. When you dash forward to make a swift attack, your weapon becomes a deadly instrument. When you score a critical hit during the strike, you made with Rushing Stride. If the weapon has a deadly trait, you double the number of dice from that trait. Oh, that's crazy. Because doesn't it do like 3dx at some point? So this is like for super crits. When you strike during Rushing Stride with a weapon that does not have a deadly trait, it gains deadly d8. So this makes your Rushing Strikes crit harder. Rushing Strides. Risky Overextension. You put all your might into a second attack. Okay, this has the press trait. Make the melee strike. This counts as 2 attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalty, but does that matter at this point? If you have press? If this strike hits, you get a critical hit. Ooh! A strike becomes a crit. It has the press trait, so this has a reduced map. Oh, wild. I feel like on that video idea of reducing its emphasis on press kind of compromises what seems to be the identity of this class. It seems to be like you like overwhelm your opponents with yourself, you know, and do more than one thing against them. That seems to be the theme here. So you have less raw DPR, but you could do multiple things. Seems to be the macro compromise of this class. So I don't know about getting at its identity. That seems to be its identity. If this strike hits, you get a critical hit. If you roll a crit, your weapon or unarmed attack also gains the deadly D10 trait. This replaces any deadly trait it already has. Oh, crazy. Wait. Is this, this might just be strictly better than this. Because this gives you the deadly trait if you didn't have it. Well, if you have a deadly weapon, then you get to super rush against somebody. But this is a guaranteed, well, a quite likely crit, because you have reduced map and you just need a regular success to crit them. And if you have effects that proc on a crit, like a number of property runes, like setting them on fire, the crushing rune, then this is, whoa, I think this is like an auto pick, it seems to me. If you critically miss, you become stunned 1. Okay, that's a downside. That's a risk. Risks and rewards, right? Oh, okay, this is the downside. You were off guard until the start of your next turn. There you go. There is the risk there. Yeah. Okay, I guess that balances that a bit. And you have no actions left at that point to, but you didn't need adrenaline. Well, you wanted adrenaline to get the reduced map. Okay. So you probably don't have time to do those things that tank you up that we saw earlier. There's that feat we saw earlier. So you're vulnerable. Okay. Storm of Debris. Oh, the breakaway attack chain. This is like the 5th feat. Is there going to be another one later? No. You quickly hurl a myriad of different objects at a group of enemies. I'm old enough to remember this arcade game called... What was it called? Where you just throw pie at people? Food Fight? You can use breakaway attack as a 3-action activity to make a ranged strike against each enemy in a 15-foot burst within 20 feet, interacting to pick up a new item before you make each attack. This counts as 3 attacks and they don't go down. I assume you still get the deadly trait and propulsive traits on them as part of this. Each foe within a 15-feet burst within 20 feet. So it could be like, it's like a almost fireball-sized fireball within 20 feet. It's 3 actions though, and it's at will. But by level 16, you're doing what damage? You're doing 4d6 plus your strength mod, and it's about to be 5d6 at 17th level. Right? That does your stunt damage, right? Am I wrong? No. It does d6 bludgeoning, and it's keyed off of your striking rune on your hand wraps. Okay. Okay. Well, if there's a lot of enemies clumped up, then sure. Okay, I'm going to say now I'm only my brain power was taxed today. I'm not going to cover the Slayer today. Subscribe so you can get notified. I think I will do it on Friday because I run a RPG tomorrow, or I might do it during the day tomorrow. We'll see. But subscribe so you can get, and ring the bell. Especially for a map focused class. Are we expecting many crits? Not yeah, not as many crits, true. I assume you're talking about Deadly Rush. Yeah, this seems kind of situational, because how often will you crit when you have map -3 with an agile attack? It seems like you want to have an agile weapon or an agile unarmed attack with this class, it seems, yeah? Like, does this class assume you have one free hand? I don't know. It's weird that Daredevil simultaneously is control, reposition, debuff, and also occasionally leans into your crits do 5 million damage, like it has a burst damage subline of feats. True. Though you need to, you know, go in that direction, spend feats on it as a resource. It only gets a deadly if you roll an actual crit, not if you get the crit on a normal hit. Are we talking about a risky overextension? Oh, if you roll a critical hit. Good point. Yes, I stand corrected. So if you roll a critical hit, it gains the deadly trait. If it didn't already have it. Okay. But I think the main appeal of this is getting things that proc off of the crit. Like, I find that at higher levels, foes have like hundreds of hit points, and you want those statuses. You're not going to kill something necessarily with the crit as often at higher levels, I find. I like the idea of a crit on a 12+, okay. Daredevil and Bar Dedication, that one guy with electric guitar and Mad Max. I think the focus on press is the risk part of risk and reward. Potentially high payout for options that have steeper penalties. And you're also more likely to crit fail on the press trait as well. Particularly against high-level foes. It's kind of risky. You may not want to do these press actions against a high-level foe, yeah? Right? And I don't know if that feels good. Because, yeah, higher level foes, those press actions might critically fail. It's quite likely. Someone should find an example and do the math. But that seems scary. Like, you're going to be as likely to... You're almost not going to never critically succeed. You're going to get the success effect. You'll really want that success effect. No, I don't want to upgrade. No. Okay. I unsubscribed to Adobe recently. I'd been using Adobe Premiere to make videos forever, but I've now switched to DaVinci Resolve. Thank you, Noah. Noah on the Downs, or Noah something. I forget the name of his channel. He's one of my the people on my Discord server. But he's got me switch over to DaVinci Resolve, which is free. My goodness. But I also have to learn how to make PDFs without Adobe. I use websites now. Don't do that while standing next to a Hecatoncheirus Titan. I forget what I was talking about when he made that comment. Cheers for this stream. I also had a lot today, so grateful for it. You're welcome. Good aligned and blind Daredevil, DC Daredevil. Yes, it's still a very good feat as a secure critical hit. Yes. If Fort or Reflex is the enemy's lowest save and you're able to figure that out, that makes you a lot less likely to crit fail on the press actions, even versus higher level enemies. True, you have the ability to target the weaker defense. That's true. And you want to do that. You want someone in the party who has better, who can spare an action to recall knowledge. Okay. 18th level, daring critical. Your riskiest attacks are also your deadliest. I definitely have to stop streaming soon because I'm starting to slur my words. I'm gonna stream Slay the Spire Downfall though in an hour and a half from now. Your riskiest attacks are also your deadliest. When you have adrenaline and strike with a weapon or unarmed attack for which you have master proficiency during a press action, which will be true with all of your attacks at this level, that your master. During a strike during a press action, we've seen a number of situations where that you can do that. You critically succeed if you roll a 19 on the die, as long as that result would be a success. This has no effect on a 19 if the result would be a failure. Okay, pretty niche. I mean, like the other feat that we've seen that happen on a 19. 5% chance that it will affect a strike. And here, it's not any old strike. It has to be during a press action. Okay, I don't know about that one. Lucky Spark reaction when you attempt a saving throw but haven't rolled yet, and you have adrenaline, you get a +2 circumstance bonus, and you roll twice with a circumstance bonus and use the better result. You then immediately lose adrenaline, which is like a non-effect, like unless you wait. All of your reactions that require adrenaline are reactions, so you don't care if you lose adrenaline because you have no other reactions that you don't have a bonus reaction. Whatever. Okay, but rolling twice and +2 is pretty good. Okay, more comments. More critical synergy, yes. Yes. Doubles the typical crit range of press actions. True. Yeah, because, well, for at level and lower level enemies, you might, especially since you can target a weak defense, I don't know if it's as low as 5% all the time, you know? The chance to crit succeed on a press action. It's more than that. But against those bosses, you know, having a 10% chance to crit is not something to sneeze at. I think the other feats that let you crit on a 19 or increase your degree of success by 1 on a 19 is, well, it makes a success into a crit success on a nat 19. Those were high level also. But I think this was more situational though. Like if you took Rushing Strike, that gave you a strike on your opening action. And this wouldn't apply to that, you know? I'm just wondering if this shouldn't just be that other feat, that other class feat that just improves 19s to critical successes. Why not just, why make it situational, you know? I don't know. There could be something I'm not considering. I always say that because I don't want to look arrogant in that I haven't considered something that the professional designers have. Okay, 20th level, the last feats. Can't Catch Me. Scrambling Retreat. That's the one where you run away and make them try to make them go after you. You slip away from each of your enemy's attacks. At the start of each enemy's turn, you can gain an extra reaction you can use only during that turn to perform Scrambling Retreat. That's funny. But it seems pretty situational to have them, you know, have a reason to have them run after you. But you do get that +2 to your AC. So you get your +2 against each enemy's most accurate attack. That seems pretty important. Good defensive feat. Reckless Abandon. Your adrenaline allows you to act with preternatural speed. The first time each encounter you gain adrenaline, you become quickened for 1 minute, or until the encounter ends, whichever comes first. There's something wrong here. You get an extra action, period? Like, I've never heard of quickened not limiting your extra action to certain actions. This lets you have 4 actions per turn for a minute in every fight. So there's something missing here. This has got to be like one of the first things the designers need to address. That and the Caraming one. Caraming, blah, blah, blah. What's it called? Caraming charge. I feel like this has to be applied to, I don't know, stride or strike or something. But they're virtually never doing stride or strike, it seems. Like, they almost always want to use their map actions on press actions. And there are a lot of them that don't, yeah. So I wonder what this would be limited to. Or maybe it should be limited because they're already, like, using press actions. But then, I don't know. This could be abused. Like, you can get an archetype and cast two action spells or something. I don't know. Ultimate stunt flexibility. Okay, this is the one that gave you 2 bonus feats, the last version. Your experience allows you to change your strategies to meet any situation. When you gain a Daredevil feat using stunt flexibility, you gain 3 feats instead of 2. Alright, so it's like the previous feat, except a 3rd feat can be up to 18th level. You can use previous ones. You can use feats from this to meet the prerequisites of other feats you gain from this. In addition, you can adapt to the challenges of adventuring by spending 1 hour to train. If you do, you can reselect the feats chosen with stunt flexibility as if you had made your daily preparations. You can't trade out limited use abilities that you've already used, such as Fortify Self. Okay. Wait, Fortify Self was once per hour, though. I don't see why you couldn't retrain that, if it takes an hour to retrain it. Why are you being stingy, Paizo? Are there other ones that are daily limited? Okay, but this lets you retrain your stunts. Cool. Alright, I'm just thinking of the fact that you can have different stunts for each adventuring day, because that was a class feature. I was talking about it like it was a feat, right? But no, it's a class feature. Yeah, everybody can have have 1 feat for a particular adventuring day, because they're anticipating a certain kind of enemy. So that's another part of playing this class. Cool. Alright. I'm tired, folks. My brain's tired. I went through a lot of thinking there that made my brain tired. So what are the final comments before I go? Whoa, there's a number of them. They missed the chance to call this upcoming feat Can't Touch This. Can't catch me. Yeah, you can't touch this is funny. Or catch me if you can. But you can't touch this. It'd be funny. Both Fighter and Gunslinger have level 18 feats that grant crits on 19, but they probably apply only to strikes. Gunslinger only with crossbows and guns. What, does this apply to non-strikes also? When you have Adrenaline and Strike, this applies to strikes only also. And it limits it with a press. It must be part of a press action. So they all apply only to strikes, but this adds an additional limit. It must be part of a press action. That was the thing I was not sure needed to be there. Because it's already, you know, situation doesn't come up often, right? Oh yeah, and then your next comment acknowledges this applies only to strikes. Yeah. With a fighter in the party that gains a reaction on every enemy's turn with their level 20 feat, Can't Catch Me is pretty good. Yeah, they'll probably learn the lesson soon enough after the fighter does it on one monster. A quickened, unless they're stupid. A quickened with no action limitation is crazy. True. Onyx says, yeah, the free quicken is probably a typo. Kremlin Koa says, I have to think that's got to be strike or stride. Limited to strike or stride. Yeah. Kremlin says, there isn't with Caraming Plus, this plus the opening feat to get Adrenaline at the start of turn 1, you get 2 Caramings on turn 1? What? There isn't with... I don't know what you're... Caraming 2 Karamings on turn 1? What are we talking? Oh, no, I think we're figuring out that this is a typo. To be quickened. Yeah, if you were if you were quickened without limit, you could Karaming charge twice. And if you could damage the same foe multiple times and you had like 100-foot speed, you could run through them and do your stunt damage, 20 times during your turn with no check required. Errata, save us. If they wanted to make the Reckless Abandon really good, it would apply to press actions. I think that would be too good. Because there's some press actions that are a single action, right? I think that might be too good. I don't know. Because they have reduced map and everything. But then they'd be at full reduced map. I don't know, maybe. Maybe it's not too strong, I don't know. Oh my god, Kremlin, you have the same scenario as I just said. If they don't errata anything, that's 20 hits on the end of the campaign Lich on turn 1. In the GM banning Daredevil for the next campaign. Luck be with you. Julian says it's 3:30 a.m. here, so I'm glad you're not covering the other class as well right now. Solemn Magus says, I'd say strike, or an action, stride and strike, I think is what you meant to type. Or an action with risky or press traits. Risky trait would not be limiting enough, probably. By the way, can you in any way influence when YouTube plays ads on your stream? It's a bit distracting to get an ad mid-sentence. I can't affect that, unfortunately. Sorry. I don't think it's unless it turned off ads, but you know, gotta chase the Benjamins. Kremlin says, I don't think it's a typo, mostly because Slayer gets a quickened for actions with the trait that most of their feats get. I don't know what you're trying to say here, or unless my brain's too tired. I don't know what the point is there. Daredevil wanting to attack more than the Flurry Ranger. Yeah. But, you know. I mean, there are press actions that, yeah, I don't know how they would fix this. Because if they want to strike again, or stride, it wouldn't have the press trait, so it doesn't seem to interact with their chassis, you know? So maybe it should have the press trait? Maybe that's the intention here? I don't know. Gotta earn your 7%, that's fair. Okay, I'm tired, folks. So I need to recharge, eat dinner, and get ready for my Slay the Spire Downfall stream. Which, if you're a Pathfinder player who likes tactics, check out Slay the Spire. Yes, and the sequel comes out soon, next month. Well, in early access, which I probably won't. It depends on how long that early access period is. I don't want to have to wait 2 years for the full version before I actually play it. I'm still getting lots of gameplay from the Slay the Spire 1, and now there's Downfall. There's like a whole new game. Okay, that's it. I'm tired. I'm gonna go without ceremony. Have a good night. Thank you, Julio. You all, good night as well. See you all later. Bye-bye.